Hello all my dear students, it's Hseb Suraj once again in front of you to help. Today I'm going to tell you about a humorous short story from 3rd unit of class 12, which is a story. This story is written by English writer Dylan Thomas. Here in this story there is perfect blend of humor and satire. There is quite humorous description of an adultery world and an outing through young boy's perspective. The writer of this story has left choices for all his readers to call this text as a story. He has stated a conditional line for all his readers, which is, if you can call it a story. By this conditional line, he means to say all his readers that it's up to them whether they can call this text as a story or not. He has even stated that there is no proper beginning and ending as a story. This text seems somewhat story type at the middle part only. This text only shows description of jumbled people and an outing. Though the title of this text is a story, the way of presenting it is quite different from a story. Thus, the writer has left choices for all his readers. As a reader, I would like to call this text as a story because there is sequence of events in the middle part and also humorous relation of events. The main narrator here in this story is a small boy who lives with his uncle and aunt. The main narrator here in this story is unnamed. He has given quite humorous description of aged people. The narrator starts first with his uncle and aunt. According to him, his uncle is big, fat and noisy person. His uncle is big and fat because he eats much. He is noisy in a sense that he has loud voice and also loud snoring habit while sleeping. According to the narrator, his uncle is a sociable person because he likes to go to outing with his friends. He likes drinking a lot in his friend's circle. He wants to pass much of his time in his friend's circle. His uncle has red hair. His hair is like dry forest. His uncle often wears huge waistcoat which is very dirty. When his uncle eats at that time, he draws food particles on his waistcoat. There are lots of stains on his waistcoat and it stinks much. His uncle has a small house, shop, and a wife. His wife, Mrs. Thomas, is small like mouse and quite like cat. She is a good housewife because she keeps on cleaning her small house most of the time. She doesn't like her husband's habit of going to outing and drinking a lot. She wants her husband's care and love each and every time. She threats her husband most of the time. When she becomes too much angry with her husband puts her on the chair. She hits her husband's head with a china dog. She often moves to her mother's house being angry when her husband does not listen to her words. Before leaving, she informs her husband about prepared dish in the kitchen and also advises him to put off his shoes before going to bed. Next, the narrator describes about his uncle's friends. According to the narrator, his uncle's friends are not good people. They have various bad habits. All of them are good for nothing. At first, the narrator describes Bob the Fiddle. Bob the Fiddle isn't a good man. He stole last year's outing money. Due to him, the last year's outing was cancelled. He did that theft so that he could pay out for his outing and also buy alcoholic drinks for him. Next, the narrator describes Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin is a money collector of this year's outing. He has collected more money to travel and have more beers. But Benjamin Franklin is always followed by Will Sentry. Will Sentry is much more careful about this year's outing. He doesn't want to miss this year's outing. He follows Benjamin Franklin to make sure that the same theft would not be repeated this year. He keeps on asking questions related with the safety of money to Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin feels bored and surprised to see Will Sentry's activities. He blames Will Sentry for not trusting him. Later on, the narrator describes about Ozone and Mr. Weasley. Ozone and Mr. Weasley are quite old people. They are quite weak by their physical condition. Mr. Weasley is quite fond of drinking a lot. Later on, the narrator narrates about the outing. The day is Sunday morning. Their destination for their outing is Portugal. Mr. Thomas decides to go to his outing against his wife's will. Mrs. Thomas becomes quite angry with her husband and moves to her mother's house. The narrator feels alone at home. That's why he also joins his uncle. They start their journey quite late at 8 a.m. by bus. They move on quite hurriedly without counting the heads. After a long drive, they realize that there is one head missing. They move back to help Ozone. During that time, Mr. Weasley wishes to get his teeth back from his house. After a long hour's drive, they stop their bus in front of a small pub of Mountain Hseb. All of them rush towards the pub, except the narrator. The narrator keeps on watching the cows over there. They enjoy a lot there. They drink much, but after 45 minutes, there remain no alcoholic drinks in that pub. Mr. Weasley wants to drink more alcohol. So they enter the next pub using rear window. They enjoy a lot there. They drink heavily. They even sing and dance. They spend their much time in that pub. It is quite late. They start their bus again. After driving for some while, they stop their bus again in front of a stream. They get down and dive into the stream. All of them get wet. They feel cold. At the meantime, Ozone helps them by preparing supper and even carrying some remaining bottles of beers for them. They realize that they are quite late. They cancel their plan of Portugal. They decide to move back to their homes. The narrator sleeps against his uncle's huge waistcoat. On the way back to home, Mr. Weasley stops the bus in search of pubs for drinks. They reach home after late midnight only that day. So this is all in all about this humorous story from class 12, which is a story by Dylan Thomas. Now I would like to present you some important questions and their answers which will help you in your examination. Thank you for watching this video. We'll meet again in my next video. Until then, bye bye, take care, and don't forget to subscribe and like my videos. Thank you very much. Subscribe this channel, hit the bell icon. Thank you very much.